All right, we are here at the grounds of the Chippewa Valley LogJam, Wild West Fest, and Steampunk Spectacular. Luke Anthony with you here, and we're talking with the musicians of the LogJam. These are some folks that if you've been out there this year, you've seen them. If you've been on these grounds in previous iterations of this place, Renaissance Fair, Village of Terror Days, you've seen them as well. So let's interview them right now. Let's talk to them and find out how they found their way up here to the Chippewa Valley. Introduce yourself and what instrument you play.
I'm Jerry Berry, and I sing and play guitar.
I'm Craig Merlin Brewers. I play the bass.
I'm Brad Collier. I play guitar and sing.
Thomas Nwendel. I play the violin and sing.
All right, so we got those parts, and you also have another musician or at least one more.
He's a musician. His name's
He's a drummer. He's a drummer anyway.
But he lives in Minneapolis. He couldn't be here today.
Mick, we've seen him kind of playing in the background on the drums before.
Labriola, yeah, Mick Labriola. He's pretty active in Minneapolis and the St. Paul area.
He's with you guys, and so we're right now in one of the pubs here, right after you walk in the main gate, and this is where your basic stage is. What kind of music are you performing out here on the grounds?
We're doing kind of a history of country music, really just kind of a variety of things from the last 150 years or so that fall loosely under that category, and we kind of like to take things and make them our own, but
right.
That's sort
songs we like from country music history, really. So, it's eclectic. Things like Hank Williams all the way back to, the 19th century, Fair and Tender Ladies, or we even do some modern classic rock, that you might hear on classic rock stations, but that are, in the country vein. So, yeah.
How did you kind of alluded to that there, but how did you decide, okay, let's do this song as opposed to that one, this artist as opposed to that artist? How do you make that call?
Well, you
play what you like.
You play what you like. Yeah, first of all, you play what you like. We make a list of songs that we like. That's how we operate. And for this, it's got several. We have several themes, so we play to the theme. When we did the Halloween show out here, we did classic rock songs that were scary. We did Paint It Black and Riders on the Storm and things like that. Highway to Hell, right. For this, the theme here is Wild West, steampunk, and the river, the LogJam that happened that we're having here on the Chippewa River. So a lot of our songs are old Western tunes, some period pieces from the 18th century, songs about riverboats and rivers and trains, and just kind of the classic themes of country music.
And so we have the bass, we have the guitar, we have other guitar, we have the drums, and we got the violin as well. How do you? Is there a certain approach you take to rearranging some of these songs so you add in some of the elements? And I mean, violin's probably the one that's maybe most different when you're dealing with more contemporary pop songs. How do you change the arrangement? What's your approach?
Rather than playing cleanly, I bend all my notes and try and play a little flat.
A lot of what we do stems from the fact that we're all guys who sit around anyway and play music and say, hey, I just found this song. And so you learn the chords and you play through it, and everybody just kind of follows along instead of really learning it just the way it sounds on the radio or just the way it sounds on a record. So it's kind of what we are already doing anyways, reinterpreting the music we hear from everywhere else.
Right. By doing it that way, it leaves us room to apply what we're going to add to the song. We were just talking about that the other day, that we were doing one song in particular totally wrong, and it was because when we first started doing it, none of us had heard it in a long time. We were all just doing it from memory, which is kind of how we like to do it, because then it really puts our stamp on it right away. We're going to be doing it different than the original no matter what, because we're really just kind of remembering what we remember about the song, and that's the element of the song. And that gives us room to, if we want to turn a pop song into a country song, or we want to turn, a country song into an Irish song, a reggae song, whatever, and jazz, whatever we want to do. We can take a song and play it in any style. That's kind of why we do what we do. We're good at specializing at types of music.
But it's a very organic process, the way it works with us in particular. It's
right.
just those things just develop the way we have fun playing them.
Yeah, we'll play a song. When we learn a song, we'll sit and play it in 4 or 5 different styles sometimes. Let's make that a country song for now. Okay, now let's play it reggae. Okay, now let's make it a rock song, and that's just for our edification and to make each other laugh and things like that.
Sometimes it happens in the space of one song that it changes styles even a few times.
How much rehearsal does it take to put together an arrangement? How many hours or days or variations on a particular song? How long does it take from you go the first idea to, okay, I think this is performance ready?
Sometimes it's immediate. You know, you get an idea, you hear something, and you play it a certain way, and it's like, wow, that was great. That works. Other times, you know, we will sit and work. Yeah, sometimes we'll sit and really, you know, if something's a little more complex, we'll sit and we'll work out harmonies. Especially, that's something we'll spend a lot of time focusing on and those sorts of things. But generally speaking, like I said, it's very organic. So it just the songs evolve the more we play them.
Right. We generally don't labor to make things different. We let them become different, and then we're all comfortable with it already. So then at that point, then all we're really doing after that is tightening it up, like Brad said, working on the harmonies, maybe, you know, figuring out where the solos, working on the ending, you know, things like that. You know.
What kind of response have you been seeing from the crowds? Are there any particular types of songs that seem to react more to?
The Royals cover seems to go over pretty big.
Yeah, the modern pop reinterpretations, you know, of modern pop songs.
You never know what's going to be popular in Punkistan this year.
Yeah, Steampunkistan,
He was going to have to drop that again. I knew he was going to have to.
Craig always forgets there's no I in Steam.
There's no
This is true. Okay, and speaking of places, where's your home base? Where are you from?
Well, you know, that's the interesting thing. People ask us that, and the way I always describe to people is we've all been playing together for 20 or more years in different bands and in different groups. And over those years, we've all settled in different places around America. I now live in Florida by way of New York, where I was raised. Craig?
I'm in New Orleans now, but, you know, I've been on the road for years and years. So, right. But I'm in New Orleans now, see? Here I am.
And I've sort of settled back in Virginia where I grew up, so it's a nice place to be.
And I'm on the road all the time. I think the last place I lived for more than 8 months at a time in 15 years was New Orleans.
You're a Wisconsinite now,
I am
though, aren't you?
soon I will be a Wisconsinite. I'm getting married and settling down here.
Marrying into Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Comes with a cheese plate, I'm pretty sure.
I love
Gaining a
cheese.
son.
Very nice. We finally have another resident in our state. Let's go in the background a bit. And you mentioned you've been playing together for a couple decades or so. How did you guys first meet? Who was the first combination that came together?
I first met Craig in a bar after hours at a Renaissance fair in Minnesota, probably around 1986, or I think 86 or 87.
87.
Oh, 87 then. He knows better than I do. He has better memory.
87. We met 87.
87, yeah, 87.
And let's
I
see.
met you guys probably like
One went to Virginia.
93 or 4.
Yeah, 93.
Yeah.
In all of these situations, when we say we met then, that means we met and we immediately started playing music with each other. You know, pretty much that's how it works out for us.
What we had in common.
And so I met Brad, around 93, and we all started playing together. 3 of us started playing together in different groups at that point. Then we all met Thomas not long after that.
98 or 99. And I was playing with another project at the time.
We were doing shows with the group he was in at the time, and we poached him away.
He's only been with us.
Had poached me from somebody else just before that.
Yeah, Thomas has only been with us for 15 years.
The new guy.
The new guy, yeah.
He's the new guy.
When did Mick get involved with you guys?
You know, Mick is actually an old friend of 20 or more years of a lot of our mutual friends that we've performed with over the years. But we didn't actually meet him until we first came here. But he became a quick friend of ours, like I said, because we shared a lot of old friends and performer, fellow performers. In particular, Danny Lorde was a close friend of his, and we've worked with Danny for 30 years too. So,
Did you guys? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, Danny's a longtime clown and magician who attends all sorts of festivals all over the country.
originally from Minneapolis.
More loco than a powerful motive.
That might be a good way of putting it. You guys are performing at this event. performed at Renaissance fairs, all sorts. What were the first sorts of venues, events, occasions that you guys started performing at?
Together, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, actually, most of us met in the Renaissance Fair setting. Setting. That's there's a lot of different venues around the country, large and small, that go by the Renaissance Fair thing. It's been a good venue for us. We do lots of theaters, bars, all kinds of things, but it's hard to find sympathetic musicians who can play that kind of music. So when you find one who can do that and can play jazz and rock and bluegrass and all those things, that's how we all kind of became quick
Can't
friends.
really do that music at the fair, so we do that after hours, and that's where we mostly learned of each other's musicality. Yeah.
What would you say is your favorite place to have played? I mean, that's a lot of years to cover, but if there's one place you went, the chemistry was there, the sound was there, the vibe was there, for lack of a better term. What is there, one or two or three that really stand out?
Well, I would certainly say this venue here, although, we would like to see more audience, we come on out and see it. It's definitely worth it. We've played for bigger crowds, I guess is my point, much bigger crowds. But, we really love the vibe of playing here. We enjoy playing together. And quite frankly, right now, playing this music, which is really, like Craig said, this is a real joy playing what we're doing now, because this is the music, a lot of it is the stuff we always would play around the campfire after hours anyway. We'd break out a Hank Williams song and we'd all sing harmonies to it in our spare time,
Hank didn't wear tights.
So to go out,
It's not appropriate at a Renaissance fair.
Yeah, that we know of. So we can't really do that.
and so to go out and play this kind of music that we love for audiences, stuff that we've been polishing for years, but it's always kind of been our personal thing, our own hobby. To go out and do it, that's a lot of fun. But really, a lot of the bigger Renaissance fairs are fun. But it's a trade-off. The bigger your audience, the bigger the venue, the more complicated it is to play and all that. Whereas here, it's pretty simple to play, and we're having a great time.
Your influence.
Somebody else probably has a
Oh
different-
yeah, go ahead. Go.
I used to like those shows we did at the Piazza. Where was that?
Near Madison.
That was a wonderful
Great venue, and we played acoustic, didn't we?
Yeah, and that's a good way to plug the idea of house concerts, because that is one of our favorite venues, and they don't do it there anymore. But the idea being, some friends had a garden nursery where they had lots of plants up there down there in Monroe, Wisconsin, and the idea that groups can just do a concert in someone's yard, do a concert in someone's house or in their barn, and if you bring enough people out, they can have a potluck. And quite honestly, we didn't even charge to get in. We were past the hat, and we always did just as good as any other job financially. And it was an audience that really appreciated it, that we would come out to the middle of nowhere and do a show in someone's garden.
The audiences at those sorts of events, it's a really special kind of event, because you get to see a band that you like in a totally different context, where everyone's even more approachable, and it's just a very intimate setting. And certainly for the hosts of those events, it's a great,
So that's a plug for the idea of house concerts. If you like music and you have a big yard, find a band you like, bring them out there, and have your friends come out and listen to them. It's called a house concert.
Yep.
Exactly. Favorite instrument that you play, and I mean specifically, what particular brand, if you have a model, or it could be something that you like to play but just doesn't usually work in this kind of setting. What is your favorite instrument?
The iPad. No, I'm kidding. I have a mid-'90s Taylor acoustic that is my favorite instrument. And I also, these guys will tell you because it drives them crazy, sit around and play an old harmony baritone ukulele till everybody's sick of it. But rarely on stage, just when I'm backstage with everybody.
My favorite instrument at this point, I guess, is probably my lute. And I love my lute. I play it a lot.
But tell them
But
about
not
your
here.
bass. Yeah.
But my bass, I've always loved this bass. This bass I got for my 11th birthday, and I'm still playing it.
And you're what, like 35 now?
Yep. I'm over 40. I am.
Just a handful of years, really.
But this is my American Standard bass. They made basses back before they made toilets, I guess.
Right. And he sleeps with it in New Orleans in case the water rises. It'll work. It'll double as a boat, a flotation device.
Easy cougar.
It could be a formidable weapon, too, if I could lift it.
Yeah, it'll make the water rise.
My favorite thing to play right now, actually, is a guitar I just finished building a few weeks ago. So I've been playing it out here at the LogJam for my for its first outing, and having a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, I guess we should say that Brad is a luthier as well. He makes handmade guitars, electric and acoustic guitar, and he's working on a baritone ukulele for me, coincidentally.
Because I spend a lot of time sitting around playing Jerry's baritone ukulele, and it needs a little work, so I'm making a new one for that. Yeah.
How about you, Tom?
I have a Jay Haid violin from Ifshin Violins in Berkeley. That's my favorite, but I don't bring it out much because the guy's going on to be something of a known maker now, and it's his first single-piece back violin, and it's really precious to me and beautiful, so I don't bring it out much, but that is my favorite one. Yeah.
Exactly. Mentioned New Orleans a lot. What's New Orleans like now for those that haven't been there a lot of late or really at all? And obviously in pop culture and just general society, people here in New Orleans they're thinking either think jazz historically or they're thinking Katrina. I mean, that's the stereotype that's out there. But you guys actually have been in New Orleans. That's where you perform. What's the community like now? What's the music scene like down there? What's the jazz scene like down there? What is everything like in New Orleans nowadays?
Thomas would be the best person to talk about it. So I love New Orleans, but I went to New Orleans for the weather.
Sometimes, and that's true. And I'll say this to kind of qualify that too. We have all been playing as professional musicians for like 20 and 30 years. And I'll honestly say that's true of me too. When I go home where I live in Florida, I generally don't go playing out very much. It's obviously not New Orleans, but I understand that. Craig only plays occasionally when he's actually at home.
I get up early. I take pictures of flowers. I love New Orleans. It's a beautiful place in the morning. I suppose it's a tough place sometimes at night, but I haven't seen that much. Thomas can tell you more about the scene and what it has been.
You mean as opposed to post-Katrina New Orleans as opposed to pre, or just...
Or comment on that, or just in general. What's the place like now? If someone were to go down there to try to check out the scene, how would you describe it to somebody?
It's vital. There's so much going on in so many fronts, not just jazz or not modern jazz in Dixieland. I mean, you could go see 6 different kinds of jazz on one street, on Frenchman Street in New Orleans. And there's bounce happening, and there's hip-hop happening, and there's classical stuff happening. And it's just a vital scene, and there's so many venues to perform, and you've got to play a lot because it doesn't pay as well, and everybody wants to say they went and played in New Orleans. But because of that, it's so conducive to all sorts of niche market stuff popping up all over the place. The food is, of course, as good as it ever was, and I would say I don't want to compare it to how it was before Katrina, because for me it's not really that different, except in the national perspective of things, I think.
In a broad sense, and take Katrina out of this, just in a general sense, from what you've seen over the years, how is the city changing from what we may know, or is it at all? Is it basically that it is what it is?
Like any city, it goes through this urban renewal thing where new neighborhoods become gentrified that the artists used to live in and now they can't afford to anymore. So there's grumbling as they find another place in the city to move around to. But I don't see it as any more gentrified or less gentrified than it was. It's just like any city, the areas that are popular and where they're being developed shift around all of the time,
And one of the other entertainers here, Bartlett, one of the lumber baron, if you will, is also a New Orleans. What's the proper term? A New Orleanian? Or?
Yes, you're from New Orleans.
How do you pronounce the name of the city? Bartlett said there's a few options. Well, if you're from there, how do you pronounce it?
It's New Orleans. It's not Nolans. It's not New Orleans. It's New Orleans. New Orleans. New Orleans. New Orleans.
I like to think of it as a slow Brooklyn accent. The accent that comes out of there is not like the rest of Louisiana. It's not like the rest of the South. There's a lot of the immigrants that moved there are the same kind of immigrant groups that came in through Ellis Island, but didn't have the same means. So often they got kicked around and came in through the port of New Orleans. So the way the language is developed is real similar, except it's hotter, so it's slower.
This is true. I've heard the occasional politician from there or whomever go, You sound like you're from New York. This is, and yeah, that's how it patterned.
When I first got down there and I bumped into some guy in a bar I was hanging out with, and he just sounded just like he was from Brooklyn, and I grew up in New York too, and I'd kind of looking for little signs of home, and I'm like, hey, you're from New York. And he looked at me, said, I've never been out of the French Quarter in my life.
A little bit different, shall we say. Influences, let's go to that a little bit. What are your biggest musical influences got you where you're at?
Wow, you're talking to four guys who, yeah, I mean, it's hard to nail it down. I mean, it's what we all do. For me, early on, when I was a little kid, my family are from Ireland, so there was certainly a lot of that around the house. Folk music, Irish music, things like that. But of course, also same as everyone else, the AM radio through the 70s and 80s. That influenced me a lot too. But my iPod's more diverse than anybody on the planet, probably. So I'm not really one to say, be able to narrow down my influences.
Yeah, that's tough. I've had an awful lot of music to listen to in these years, and
Craig grew up on jazz, though. Craig grew up on jazz.
My dad loved Broadway tunes, and he loved jazz, but his was more pop jazz.
Right.
It was more poppy jazz. Didn't listen to much folk music until I went to Renaissance fairs. But most of the music that I've listened to in my last 30 years has been music that other people that I know make.
Right. A lot of live music.
A lot of those are my favorite groups.
Right.
People that I know.
I grew up largely listening to and learning to play by playing along with like Beatles records and Neil Young and things like that. And then I became kind of a Rush fanatic and, slaughtered a few goats in an effort to siphon away Geddy Lee's magical powers. But giving up on that eventually, Jethro Tull and a lot of music like that blends folk elements and rock stuff.
Yeah,
but
we're all pretty much on board with that. It's kind of what we sit around and listen to at camp when we're camping and stuff. A lot of that classic rock, progressive folk, that kind of down that
then
vein.
we'll bounce to a CeeLo Green song or something, or whatever. So it really is just crazy.
Comes on and we're all in hip hop land and.
Yeah. I'll turn on the Spoo Monkeys.
Yeah. The band, not the
You mentioned all our favorite bands. Jim Infantino from Boston, that guy's amazing. I was listening to him this morning.
Love Jonathan Colton. I think he's the most inspired lyric writer I've known for years. I love him.
Ben Folds, too.
Oh, Ben Folds.
Yeah.
I started when I was 7 and played classical, so for a long time I was kind of lost in that world. And when I got out of high school, I really was what I refer to now as a paper-trained musician. If you didn't write it out for me, I didn't know what to play. And so I really just explored listening to other people who was told by other people were free in their soloing, and it didn't really matter the genre of music to me so much as hearing somebody play something that they wrote for themselves or composed as they were playing it even. Like, of course, Hendrix was a big influence, and a lot of guitar players, and Ornette Coleman, and John Coltrane, and just listening to these people who played from a place that I didn't come from, a place that seemed like a mysterious other side, invisible world that they were going over to and bringing back these ideas and playing, and I wanted to be one of those guys,
Yeah, that kind of brings us back to what we were talking about, our arrangements. They are largely improvised. I mean, we all get in the same room with the lyrics and the chords and the melody of a song, and we just start playing it, and whatever comes out of it that feels good, that's our arrangement. So it really is, in the basic of what we do, it's very improvisational.
You played obviously with each other a lot over the years. You played with other people. Who are some of the more memorable musicians you played with over the years, and not necessarily someone famous, but who are the folks you'd like to play with again, for lack of a better term?
Wow. My favorite bunch of people to play with is there's a band called Cantiga. They're a bunch of dear friends of ours. They do a lot of Renaissance Fairs concerts. And, basically what they do is they do early music, but they do it in a jazz form, and it's really amazing. It's they're actually playing cantigas and things from the Renaissance and from, early music. But it's so accessible to modern audiences. It really is. It's free, it's improvisational, and they're fine musicians, all of them. Look them up, Cantiga.
Yeah, Cantiga in particular.
I'd love to play
one
with
of the first.
Malcolm again, wouldn't he?
Yeah. But and our friend Bob Bielfeld, who plays whistles and flutes with that band, is one of the greatest musical brains ever. We'll call him the professor. But he actually brought a lot of the music that is now popular at Renaissance fairs and things like that all over the country. He brought a lot of that stuff out of dusty old, libraries and stuff, and made them fairly common tunes around the country. So definitely him and Cantiga are among our favorites.
And we've been lucky through the years to meet a lot of people that are pretty kind of famous, like Andrew Bird's been a friend of ours.
Played with Andrew. It's amazing.
Yeah, and Andrew Calhoun is, I think, a very famous fellow from Chicago. When Kat Eggleston, we got to play with her. She came out. I've met, Jim Hancock. Nobody's mentioned Jim Hancock. I love to play with Jim Hancock. But that's the thing. I've spent a life playing with people that I know and love. Can't beat it.
That's way to do it.
You can't beat it.
Alan Robertson and Arnie Yanez are two guys that I was in a trio with for this kind of vaudeville act, sort of called the Flaming Idiots, that did a lot of shows in Austin, and then we did a bunch of runs on Broadway at the New Victory Theater, and it was I think they called us a cross between Spike Jones and Django Reinhardt. So it was like themed original music with a lot of Foley artist noises in it and stuff, and viciously swinging the whole time. And those guys were just great to play with. It was the biggest sounding three-piece band that I've ever been in.
That reminds me, too, of there's a young man in Chicago right now named Arnie Parrott, who we've had the honor of the last couple of years playing with. He's just starting out, but the kid's amazing. I shouldn't call him a kid. He's a young man. He's amazing. You're going to be hearing great things from him. If you're in Chicago and he's playing, his name's Arnie Parrott. Find him and go listen to him.
Just wrote a musical, and as a matter of fact, should be making its way out sometime.
What kind of recorded output have you guys made over the years, like either as kind of an ensemble or with your own projects?
Wow. I have a couple solo records. I have produced and recorded at least over a dozen records for different groups, most of which these guys are on. Minstrels of Mayhem, New Minstrel Review. I've done some solo albums with Brad and Thomas and recorded on a bunch of Craig's. Craig's got a huge solo output. But yeah, he'll talk about that.
I've put out 9 albums along the way. It's been a while.
Under the name
Craig of Farrington. Yeah.
He's also played on 6 different Minstrels of Mayhem albums, 3 or 4 New Minstrel Review, or 2 New Minstrel Review albums as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I've released a few solo projects under J. Bradley Collier and recorded with the Minstrels of Mayhem, New Minstrel Review, a few other Renaissance fair-related acts, Old Souls, and As You Like It, and Brollywacker, and all sorts of people. Yeah. I love studio situations. So I think, in general, it's a fun and very different type of performing and thinking about music.
I've been a sideman since I was 17 or 18, so I don't even know how to get into the discography. I've done a lot of work with a lot of different people. Emilio Dabul and the Baba Hassans, and an industrial band named Treaty. And I don't even want to get into
He's
this.
got a solo album out there, too.
Yeah, I've got one solo album out, and then another kind of duet album with Billy Miller, who's a buddy of mine that I've recorded some original and covers with. But there's a ton of material out there.
What's the studio approach like compared to performing live, rehearsing, etc.? Because you're recording to tape. That's what's going to be out, and that's there for life. Is there a different approach to getting it right for that one take? How do you do?
Practice. Rehearse. You always remember that you're spending money when you're in the studio, and all the time you can take before that to be ready for that moment is the best. But the truth of the matter is, you can practice, you can rehearse, but as soon as you get in there and turn on that tape, it's a different thing. You can play it a million times the right way, but as soon as you know that tape's on, it's a different thing. And you're going to start making mistakes because of that. That's the way it is. But the best thing is just be prepared. It's all about pre-production, Yeah.
Sometimes it comes down, because a lot of our music is, especially live, so improvisational. It comes down sometimes to making decisions on, when it comes around to this time around after the chorus or whatever, I'm going to play it this way, and just kind of, codifying those things a little bit, just so, you're going to get a pretty solid, good take
Right.
instead of.
Yeah, you can't improvise every take. You do eventually have to lock yourself into something.
That's a little different,
I think part of it too is also working with a producer and / engineer, or two separate guys that put you in that space that you're comfortable to let improvisation happen, but not so comfortable that you're not sticking to your parts and being aware of what's happening. On Jerry Berry as a producer, and Jim Hancock, both as producers, have been some of the guys that have made me the most comfortable. And because, like Jerry said, when you get in there and under the microscope, and your buddies are all sitting in the room looking through the window at you, and the mics are running, and it gets difficult. So really, the people that you're working with that make it so you feel comfortable to do what you know how to do already is, for me, the most crucial part of being in the studio and getting something that sounds like both improvisational and within the frame of what we're trying to get in there and get out of without being too vague, kind of like that.
What do you want to do next? What's the next place to go to, and not just necessarily next week, but what would you like to do next? And playing off of that, how long do you see you guys performing, either with each other or just in general as a musician?
It's going to sound trite, but writing a song that'll change people's minds.
Sounds like a good plan. I'm going to be after this. I've been kind of changing directions a little bit, so I'm going back home to continue working, building guitars and stuff. And I'm also going to be working with some folks at a music festival called Floyd Fest in Virginia to help kind of direct their audience participation jams and stuff like that, kind of help facilitate that. So that's kind of things I'm up to.
I'm living in New Orleans, so I'm sort of trying to find a way to maybe do more music down there. Yeah, but I do love the weather,
And taking pictures.
and I love taking pictures.
Of the weather.
And I cook professionally as well, and sometimes I've been doing this for a fairly long amount of time, and sometimes I get sick of doing it professionally and go back to the kitchen, and then come back and play some more when I feel like I can stand being looked at again, or whatever it is, rather than listen to, which is sometimes how I think I feel, and that's why I go running back to the kitchen again, where no one can see me and I can still do something artistic without having to have a direct attachment with it as far as my image or whatever goes.
Right. And on top of that songwriting trite thing that I said, I think we all can agree that, we've been all doing this, like we've been saying, 20, 30 years. None of us have gotten rich off it, but we keep coming back to it. And one of the reasons is because we're playing with guys that we really love and guys that we want to be around. There's never been any of that, oh, God, I got to go to work with that guy today. We all really love playing together. And to have a life where you can do that and where you can actually get paid for it, not a lot, but get paid to do it, and to continue to do it well into your, adulthood, let's say. However arrested that is a real blessing, and I think we all look forward to the future of continuing doing that together.
Yeah.
When we can.
Well, why don't we hear a little bit of it right now?
Sure. What are we going to do, boys?
Do you want to do the hit?
Yeah, Jerry and Craig and Brad and Tom getting their instruments out here. It's a gorgeous, perfect day. If we could have this for the 6 days of the LogJam, it'd be in perfect shape. But we'll take it right now. Great day to perform. So do a couple songs, tell us what they are, and go for it.
Okay, first what we're going to do is an old song from 1800s or before. In fact, you'd probably be able to find versions of this song that go all the way back to early music. Craig's going to put his foot down here on his bass. And most people will probably recognize it. And we'll leave out a verse real short. Come all ye fair and tender ladies, take warning how you court your man. They're like the stars as love grows colder, disappears like the morning dew. Come all ye fair and tender ladies, take warning how you court your man. They're like the stars on a summer's morning. First they'll appear, and then they're gone. My daddy was a handsome gambler. He had a chain 5 miles long, and on each link a heart did dangle of another girl he loved and wronged. Come all ye fair and tender ladies, take warning how you court your man. They're like the stars on a summer's morning. First they'll appear, and then they're gone. First they'll appear, and then they're gone. That's an oldie. That's an oldie. Are we gonna do another one?
Are we going to do this?
Dewey,
Let's do one.
do the Dewey.
You wanna do a newie? Really?
We ought to.
You wanna do it? Wanna do it?
This is, yeah, sure. This one's been very popular out here.
Yeah. We did this arrangement of a modern song. You'll hear what it is, but it seems to get quite a good reaction out of the audience. So. Never seen a diamond in the flesh. I cut my teeth on wedding rings in the movies. I'm not proud of my dress. In a torn-up town, no postcode envy. Every song's like gold teeth, great goose, tripping in the bathroom, bloodstains fall down, crushed hotel rooms. We don't care. Driving Cadillacs in our dreams. Everybody's like crystal, made like diamonds and times. Jet plane islands, taxis on the road. We don't care. We're not caught up in your love affair. And we'll never be royals. It don't run in our blood. The kind of love's the same for us. Crave a different kind of love. So let me be your ruler. You can call me King B, and baby I'll rule. Let me live that fantasy. My friends and I have cracked the code. We count our dollars on the train to the party. Everyone who knows us knows we're fine with this. Get cup of money. Every song's like gold teeth, great juice dripping in the bathroom, bloodstains fall down, trash in the hotel room. We don't care. We're driving Cadillacs in our dreams. Everybody's like this. They got diamonds and times, jet planes, island, taxis and goldies. We don't care. Not caught up in your love affair, and we'll never be royals. It don't run in our blood. The kind of love's the same for us. Great different kind of buzz. Let me be your ruler. You can call me King B, baby, I'll rule. Let me live that fantasy. fantasy. Let me live that fantasy.
Very good. Jerry, Craig, Brad, Tom, thank you very much for doing the interview, and good luck with the final week of the LogJam and everything beyond that as well.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Hope to see some folks out here.